If you are enjoying this podcast and other podcasts on the Dragon Wagon Radio Network, be sure to check out the Dragon Wagon Shop. Awesome t-shirts and mugs from your favorite shows so you can tout your podcast pride, all while supporting your favorite indie podcast network. And make sure to check it often for new items and limited time designs. So shop now at dragonwagonshop.com and get your dragon swag on.
Let's talk about it.
Yes, let's talk about it indeed. Welcome back to another installment of Elaborate. I am your host, Jake Lloyd. Thank you so much for tuning in, for sticking with us. We're learning, we're growing, we're doing it together. And I'm so excited to have my guest this week be here because I've known him so long, for as long as I've lived in Los Angeles. It's been 10 years. He is an actor and a model and a nutrition expert. You've seen him on everything on television. The one and only Michael Foster is on the couch today. Hi, Mike.
Hey, Jake. How are you doing?
I am doing great. This is very long overdue.
Very long overdue. But the thing of it is everyone in Los Angeles has a therapist, right? So
Yes.
I feel that this is going to be my therapy session.
Oh, yeah. Welcome. Welcome. Tell me about your mother. No, we'll get there. We'll get there. Mike, I've known you so long, and I didn't really think about it until this morning when I was like, oh, Mike's coming in today, and we're going to chat, and I'm really excited. And then I was like, God, I took that job working for Big Back Grips, free plug, for, what was his name?
Larry Greenfield.
Larry.
Yep.
Larry. So I took a job for Larry, who's the owner of Big Back Grips. It's a weightlifting grip that's like replaces gloves. So it looks like those things that you use to open jars. You know, those little rubber things?
It actually works great for
and
that.
That's primarily how I use mine, as you can tell based on my lack of biceps. Well, I took a job as a cinematographer and just doing videography work for like a live event on Muscle Beach. And that must have been, I mean, is it a competition that they have every single summer at the same time?
Yeah, there's a guy down there named Joe Wheatley, and he runs that whole Muscle Beach, you know, that little pit area.
Right.
They have their bodybuilding show there and a little expo to go with. And yeah, I think it's an annual event where it's every year.
And I'm trying to think of the month. That's why I asked. It's got to be like summer.
I want to say, it was summer for sure, because we were out there in tank tops and it wasn't cold.
So likely June or July, maybe?
I'm thinking it's around the 1st of July.
Okay, which means that I had only been in Los Angeles for 1 month and change.
Wow.
Which means that within 1 month of moving to LA, I met you. And that's how quick that, you know what I mean? Like, so, and I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary of living in Los Angeles, which means I've known you for a decade.
A decade.
Does it feel like you've known me for a decade?
It feels like 2008? Yeah, it was 2008, I believe.
9.
Was it 9? Okay,
it
it
might
was
have been
9.
9.
Okay, so 2009 was yesterday, wasn't it? I mean, where did a decade go?
It's insane.
That
absolutely insane. So yeah, Mike, for those who can't tell just from his booming voice, is not a small guy, and you were there as a spokesperson.
Yeah, so as you know, I was a high school teacher back in Michigan forever, and that's what I did. And I came out here, and I needed to have jobs to work different stuff to be able to stay out here.
Sure.
And I was doing a lot of demos for sports nutrition companies.
Right.
So, you'd walk into a GNC or a local store, and I'd be the guy standing there smiling and be like, hey, Jake, you want to try some protein?
Yeah. And then I look at a guy like you and go, can I look like that? And then you go, yeah, if you eat this thing or buy this thing. Right. And then the truth is, no.
Hey, I tried to be honest.
No, I know.
But
I'm busting your balls. But
I know. But no, that's exactly how it would go. They'd be like, well, dude, if I drink this, you're right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. So, but Larry came up to me and was like, "Hey, he's like, do you want to do this? Do this weekend thing and come down and represent Big Back Grips?" I was like, "Yeah, I'd go to Venice Beach and get paid for it to hang out down there.
Right.
Let's do it."
And not for nothing, but I could not have been happier that you were involved in that, because I remember you were like a saving grace for me, because here I am, like. So I do have a background in the world of pro wrestling. Okay, so I'm not unfamiliar with the meathead. Okay,
the meathead.
But the idea of like going to like a weightlifting competition, bodybuilding competition, I was just like, I could not be more out of my element as far as like personalities and whatnot. and the second I met you, I feel like we hit it off immediately. Oh, yeah. And it was especially because Larry, they were just like, they wanted like random shots of like they wanted online materials. They wanted to have as much video material as they can, not just to promote the product but to have on the YouTube for fun stuff. And so we were just like coming up with crap to do. We would just pretty much, they just let us loose on the beach that day.
Well, and the thing of it is not to fast forward too much because we may be talking about it, but then think about when we did the board is improv.
Right.
I love improv. So when I met you, that was our connection. Like, let's go improv some stuff.
And the fact that like you're, now I'm going to be like really mean to meatheads, but like you're super smart and you're really funny. And I think that most of the stereotypes that you don't fill into them for most of them, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. And so it was just, I remember it was fun. Also, Ann McDaniels, we met that same day. Yeah. And who, God, I got to get her on the couch too. And is fantastic. She's another actress who we all met at that same exact time, working that same promo.
Yep.
But anyway, so 10 years. Wow. 10 years. And so, the second I met you, I'll say this, and I'm going to say this as sort of a catch-all, and it might start as an insult, but let me finish. Okay. Is a guy who looks like you, all right? You're big, how tall are you?
6'6".
Sorry, 6'6", all right? He's 6'6". He's super cut. I mean, like incredible physique. All right, super handsome. You didn't at the time have like the long hair, but now you're kind of rocking the long hair. Like this guy is gonna, and this is where it's gonna sound like an insult. This guy's gonna work in LA regardless of whether or not he's talented, right? Because he's got that look. He's that guy that other guys who go like, what the heck? How come he got it? But now this is where it becomes a positive and not an insult. Add the immense talent that you are on top of that character and that archetype who's going to get the work. It was a no-brainer, which is why I've put you in everything I've ever made since in LA.
And by the way, I want to give a very public thank you for that, because you know something?
What's that?
You are the first person that ever believed in me to be like, I'm going to get, no, it's a true story.
Really?
That role of Jericho was the first time anyone gave me a role other than like, man number 2, bouncer number 3,
sure.
And it was like, I was actually a character.
You had a name and lines.
Oh man, that's why my hairstylist to this day, Todd Shear, I went to him and I was like, you've got to give me a badass haircut because this guy is going to be hardcore.
Well, yeah. So the second that I met you that day, I just put you in the brain. I was like, all right, well, this guy's going to be in a thing I make. You know what I mean? It was obvious. And then I made this fun like action adventure Indiana Jonesy sort of thing called the Skull Rosary. You can find it on YouTube or go to @3P Creative and you'll see all the links on Twitter. I cast you as the big bad because how could I not cast you as the big bad henchman specifically?
Yep.
And it was obvious because you're hilarious, you're funny. I gave you this really dry lines, and everything that you delivered, like you got laughs out of things that like that very few people could get a laugh out of because it's such a dry line, and yeah, you're fantastic. So with all that said, it's very kind of you to say that I'm the first. I'm sure I'm not the first person.
It really is, Jake. I'm not kidding. I mean, as far as I did some extra work before that,
sure,
but that was the first time that it was actually like, no, we're going to make a movie and you've actually got a character and a name and you've got lines. And
good. I'm glad.
And seriously, that really sparked like being in front of the camera, you're behind the camera, well, you were doing both at that time.
Sure.
But just working with you and being like, all right, we're going to get this take and this cut and all that. And I was just like, this is so awesome. And that really fueled the fire for me at the time because I wasn't working much. And to go out there and really put my best foot forward and just
even on a project like that where we were doing it just DIY, doing ourselves.
I don't look at that as even though a project. I looked at that as like this is going to be my chance. This is going on film and it's going to be there forever. And I'm going to do my best. And
well, that means a lot. I'm glad that I could do that for you. But I can also guarantee that if it wasn't me, it would have just been whatever other schmuck walked along after me and went like, I'm gonna use this guy's abilities for my own gain. I always say that about Tony. Everybody knows my bromance with Tony Wayne, and he's I put him in everything as well. And I always say like, Tony's like, he's always like, oh, I'm really appreciative you put me in everything. I was like, no, you don't get it. Like, I'm using you. Like, you're going to show up and I generally don't have to pay you because you're my friend. So I'm just going to use you for my own gains. But anyways, so you did specify that you were a teacher at some point. I want to say, you're not a Wisconsin. Are you Minnesota? Where are you from?
So close yet so far away.
Really? Neither or?
I'm a Michigander.
Michigan. No, I'm sorry. I knew it was somewhere over there.
We got a whole bunch of lakes too, and they're great.
Yes, there you go. My mom's on just the other side of one of those in Buffalo.
Yeah. Well, actually, she's on the other side of the same lake that I'm from.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm from the Lake Erie side, and that's where she's at.
Depending on how good your arm was, you might have been able to skip a rock.
Well, Hank was more of a hitter, not a fielder.
Sure, that's fair.
See what I did there?
I like that. We'll get there. So you're from Michigan.
I grew up, you hear a lot of people talk about like how rough their childhood was and this, that, and the other thing. And for me, literally, turn on an episode of Leave It to Beaver.
Really?
I'm one of those guys that can say I had an amazing upbringing. Right. I'm located like where Detroit is in Toledo, Ohio, sort of right in the middle on Lake Erie. So that kind of area. And I grew up, and my dad was a high school teacher and then became a principal.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. And my mom was a nurse. So, I mean, it was just like, you know.
Your mom was a nurse at a hospital?
Yeah, she was a nurse in labor and delivery. So
gotcha. Wow. Your mom was like bringing babies into the world.
To this day, Jake, when I go back to Michigan, I can't tell you how many people come up to me and they're like, you know, your mom delivered, and they start naming off all their kids. I mean, it's just, I had a great childhood. I would not change anything about it other than maybe my eating habits back then.
Okay. Since you said it, you were a big kid.
Am I allowed to say fat kid?
You can say whatever you want. It's you.
I was a fat kid. I was actually the fat kid.
Wow.
Yeah, I was able to play sports because I was so much taller than everybody else. But I mean, by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was 6'5" and weighed about 290 pounds, and it was all gristle, my friend.
You were near 300 pounds.
Oh, I was almost 3 bills, and I loved, my thing was I loved basketball and baseball.
Right.
So in baseball, I'd be the guy that would. Well,
you could knock them.
You saw what I could do.
Of course, yeah. We had a couple of those. You know, I had friends of mine who weren't not necessarily that big, but they were the kids in high school who like shot up real early and were just like the large kids, and it was like, oh well, those are home run hitters. Like even if they couldn't do anything else, that was it. That's what they did.
Yep. Yeah. But sadly, where we played, we didn't have a fence, so I would hit the hell out of the ball, and I'd get a double.
Wait, how did you not have a fence? Like in high school?
Well, where I'm from, it's a lot of farmland out there.
Okay.
So our high school was underwater all the time. Where the part of the country, there's a lot of clay on top of it, so it didn't drain water really well.
Oh.
And we'd have to play at the junior high field, which was just this big, giant open field. And
so they pretty much just had like a backstop, a diamond, and then nothing.
Yeah, and then it would just go. So I mean, I would hit the ball, it would just keep going and going, and it was terrible.
Set up some cones or something at least.
You'd
throw something out there.
I would probably be one of the top home run hitters in all time, but instead I had a lot of doubles because I was so slow. And basketball, the same thing. I mean, I couldn't jump, but I was so tall, I just stand there.
Snatch it out of the air.
Yeah. Right. And I knew that by the time I was a sophomore, because I went to one of the larger high schools in the state of Michigan, I knew that if I didn't get things going and get in shape, I knew I'd never play again. I actually had a good story. It was my freshman year in basketball. I remember I won the coach's award. This is like the best learning lesson I ever had. And I was so excited to tell my dad, he was a coach. I'm like, Dad, I got the coach's award afterwards. You know those banquets you have after.
Sure, yeah.
So it was a sports banquet, and he kind of looked at me and he goes, do you know what that trophy means? And I'm like, what's that? He goes, you were the nice kid that sits on the end of the bench and doesn't complain about playing time.
Wow, Dad.
Sorry to the everybody gets a trophy fans out there, but my dad basically let me know you got a trophy and it means that you just were being nice. And I was like, no, I want to have one that says I did something good.
I'm totally, can I say, like, I live in the shades of gray in that world for sure.
Okay.
Because I also was the kid who hated the participation trophy.
Right.
Because I was, I like to think at least that I was smart enough to know what it was without anybody having to tell me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I wasn't.
Also I was, that's cute. But also I was also just sort of I'm no different as an adult, I suppose. Like I kind of have a chip on my shoulder, and I was always sort of like, well, shit, like, if I get that I wasn't the best at this year, but well, shit, next year I want to be the best at it. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't want this thing that I know it means nothing. But simultaneously, like, the bleeding heart liberal in me is just sort of like, yeah, but the kids. But then I'm also like, no, fuck that. Learn a lesson. Like, I admittedly, you probably just know from social media and from us talking. Like, I have a good relationship with my nieces, my 3 nieces, my brother's kids, and I've never let them win at anything ever. I'm not that uncle. Like, if we play a game, I don't care. Like, it's
man up.
We're playing. Yeah, I don't care, because it's like you need to learn how to lose. Now, that doesn't say like I actively crush them. If I'm being honest, I've lost Trivial Pursuit to this 8-year-old once. So, not for nothing, they're holding their own just fine.
Are you smarter than a first grader?
Exactly. And in fairness, it was family Trivial Pursuit, and Gracie beat the entire family, the middle kid. So it wasn't just me, it was also my brother and sister-in-law.
Okay.
Because a lot of it is like science questions that they're getting right now that we've long forgotten,
Right.
I'm like, I don't know, just shit. She's like, that was my homework last week. I was like, damn it. Friggin' school's doing a good job. Anyways, yeah. So no participation trophies for you after that. You became competitive.
Well, it was between that and the fact that I wanted to, at some point, before my 40th birthday, kiss a girl, and I was terrified of girls.
For 40th.
Oh, I was
Sure.
I was scared of girls. Right. I was slow. I was heavy, and and being that tall, I could like literally touch the rim with just I could barely just graze it like that,
like a basketball rim.
Basketball rim. So that's where I was at, and. by the time I was a senior, I didn't know at the time what I was doing with diet and nutrition. I just get up in the morning, eat a donut, wouldn't eat the rest of the day, and go to practice and run. And I got down to 204 pounds.
That's my current eating habits.
Oh,
okay.
Do you just have one donut?
That's a good point. Good point. You're right. Sorry. Who am I kidding?
Yeah. But no, I got down to 204 pounds, and then I noticed all of a sudden I could get my, high up, here, like almost armpit above the rim, and I was dunking, and I was like, all right.
And that was in high school.
It was high school. Yep.
So you had shed a lot of the weight before you even graduated.
Yeah, I didn't lift weights then. So my body was basically just really skinny because I just lost fat.
Right.
And then that's when I went to college. That's when I picked up a weight for the first time. And I'll never forget, I'm going to give her a plug. Her name was Rose Rhoda. I was hanging out with this girl my freshman year, and we went over to her room. We were literally just watching a movie. True story. Not one of those like code words.
Yeah, you weren't Netflix and chilling.
Yeah, no. We weren't hanging out. But I just literally, I remember I was kind of sitting on the floor, sitting back, and that's probably, I'd say it was maybe 9 months after I started lifting weights. And she looked at the back of my arm and she goes, wow, your triceps look really nice. And that was literally the first physical compliment I'd ever gotten in my entire life.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, so I don't think I missed a workout since.
The first physical compliment you've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Even as a little kid, they didn't say like, oh, that's a big, strong boy. None of that stuff when you were little?
Eat up,
I can really, honestly, I can attest to that in a unique way because I was always told how skinny I was. It was that sort of thing. And I feel like, especially women, I was raised by the coven. I was raised by all women, and there's people who listen to the show are well aware of that at this point. And the coven, I think, because they're women, at least at that time in the 80s, like they always been like, oh God, you're so skinny, as if it was sort of like a compliment. But it like gave me a fucking legit, like, and I wouldn't say a Napoleon complex because I was always actually taller at certain points, but like I was just like, I'm just a scrawny kid, and I felt like I never felt like I was a man, like ever, like literally, and that mindset shaped so much of who I ended up becoming, which is why like I always ended up liking, like I never cared about we were totally opposites, where I know for a fact that like Sly Stallone and like all these like tough guy action heroes really like helped sculpt who you were, where for me, I saw them as like my oppressors. Do you know what I mean?
I understand.
And so like that's why I saw,
I thought the same thing about skinny kids. I'm like, you're skinny and I'm fat and that's not cool.
It's so funny because honestly,
talk to you.
Like, it's the reason why, like, when I first saw City Slickers, I was like, oh, here's an action hero in that movie. Like Billy Crystal, Mitchie the Kid saves the day, and he's freaking 5 foot, 5 foot nothing.
Yeah.
This like scrawny little guy from New York, from Long Island. And I'm just like,
that's your action hero.
And I was like, you know what? Like he's a representative of me, in that sense. And that's why I sort of attached myself to those things. And I still, to this day, you could ask my girlfriend, she's well aware, because this shit has not rubbed off. I still have like massive masculinity issues, where I always feel like I'm not quite man enough. I feel, it's the reason why like I never grew facial hair for such a longest time, because I was sort of like, oh, I'm not man enough for facial hair. Like I have like all of these weird things. So it's so fascinating that like we have the exact equal and opposite experience, because you were just like, oh, well, no one ever told me anything nice about me because I was bigger. Whereas me, I was like, I always assumed the things that people were saying were actually a problem. Like I interpreted them as a problem,
Yep.
Did you so you got this first ever compliment from this girl?
Mm-hmm.
Did that immediately just change the way that you?
Absolutely. That was like, to me, I would have taken it as like, oh, wow. So the better shape I'm in, the more accepted I would be.
Right.
And I mean, and I grew up like, you talk about your skinny stories. I look at you. I love how you said that, as the oppressors.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, imagine being a kid in first and second grade. Do you remember those back in the day? I'm sure you do. Probably you've got one somewhere here in your in the pop culture house of paradise.
Right.
But those little boxed Halloween costumes that would have like the plastic Halloween costume and just the mask in it.
Yes, I'm well familiar.
Okay, like those. I remember I think I was either in kindergarten or the first grade, and I got the biggest one they had, like an extra large, and wearing it to school, and the thing ripped in half within.
God.
I mean, it was just like, oh, so I always had to go to school with like the homemade Halloween costumes. Kind of like the other day, I don't know why, Eddie Murphy Delirious. I was watching that on where the kids are making fun of him. You ain't got no ice cream. It was like me. You don't have no Halloween costume because you're the fat. Because you're the fat kid.
Right. Wow, that's my Halloween costume gripe wasn't necessarily with my weight. It was the fact that I wore glasses when I was in like third grade. So I actually used to do material about this, where the problem with Halloween as a kid wasn't anything but my glasses, because none of the Ninja Turtles wore glasses. and these never fit in between those crappy holes of that plastic Batman mask.
Yep.
And my mom would be like, "Why don't you just take the mask off?" Say Bruce Wayne. I was like, "I don't want to be Bruce Wayne. I want to be Batman." So yeah, different reasons, same problems.
but you know what? The thing of it is in a way, not in a way, I can say this for sure. I'm so glad that happened to me because now I always, and to this day, even when I was a high school teacher, I'd always see the kid in the room that was the most awkward. Right. Or the one that seemed like they socially didn't fit in or was different. I'd always befriend them. Right. Even when I was in high school, when I did lose the weight, I mean, it's like people
we would have been friends in high school, you and I.
Oh, I guarantee it. Well, I was actually, it wasn't like I was just this big jock guy. Sure. I was, believe it or not, my senior year, I was on the high school radio station, and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the 1992 WEJY DJ of the Year, Mike Foster.
Wow. Well, I mean, you definitely do have the voice. and that's not to say you have a face for radio, but you have a voice for radio.
But it was, the thing of it is I was on the path to being you.
Right.
Because I remember that's back in the day. Do you remember the old VHS, video recorders?
Sure. Oh, yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So my buddies and I would run around.
The shoulder mount.
The shoulder mount.
Just for the listener, you were miming having this boombox of a VHS tape on your shoulder.
And we had one of those because my dad would always videotape my sister for softball. She was a pitcher. Right. And I'd always use that with my friends, and we'd make these stupid little movies. Right. Nothing on the level of today what kids can do with technology, splicing and all
ridiculous.
That. But it was just that was what I loved to do. So it's like I'd have to go to baseball practice and be like, oh God, I'd rather be hanging out with the guys like you at the radio station, not like the big, I'm the captain of the football team. This is so cool.
So you were sort of a fish out of water. You were kind of a nerd. Were you? You said that was the first time that when that girl said that it was a compliment. Did you often get bullied though, as well, inversely so, or was your size?
What do you want to talk about? Fat Foster, the milkman. Look, he's got tits. Hey, can you do the truffle shuffle chunk? I mean,
God, right. So your size, your height didn't, because I always felt like shorter fat kids had it way worse than the taller fat kids.
They probably did
because you were still imposing. I'm sure.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, kids are the worst.
Seriously. Right. And I mean, you want to talk about terror? This was my terror. Whenever we'd play basketball in gym class, shirts and skins.
Oh, I knew you were gonna say
God.
That.
I would just sit there and just, I'd tremble. I would tremble. Right. And even to that point, because I had to have, when I was in college, I had surgery on my chest. It's called gynecomastia surgery.
Oh, shit.
And it's from, a lot of people know it as bitch tits, where people that take steroids get it, but that wasn't me. I had a lot of estrogen growing up. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, that's why women have more body fat than men. They have more estrogen. Yeah. So I had high levels of estrogen. So I had these actual boobs. Right. And so even when I took my shirt off, even when I lost the weight, so I had my stomach was flat and I had these boobs hanging there, and it was just like, oh man. So is it technically a cosmetic surgery? It was cosmetic, but the way the plastic surgeon did it is he's like, technically, because it's not fat in there, it's actual swollen glandular tissue. Interesting. It could potentially be a cancer threat down the road for you. So gotcha. So I had those out.
Wow, that's I never knew that, or did I even know that was a thing? So, geez.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had an older sister who played softball. Is that your only sibling?
My younger sister. Yep.
Oh, younger sister. Sorry.
That's the only one. And she was actually, I think to this day, she is the only All-American in high school that I went to. A lot of kids graduated and went on to college to be All-Americans, but at the time she was one of the best pitchers in the country. Wow. Yeah, she went up to Central Michigan on a full ride.
Wow. Did your father have baseball roots, or was he interested in baseball?
My dad played in college.
Because I was going to say, it seems like there has to be some influence here for all the baseball.
Yeah, my dad was the coach for the high school varsity baseball team for, I don't want to say 15 years. Wow. And the only reason he gave it up is because he became an assistant principal. So in 1988, he went from being an English teacher, which I was, to being an assistant principal. And when you do that in the school district he was in, when you make a transition from teaching to administration, you can't coach any longer.
Oh, gotcha. So he had to stop coaching at that point. Yeah. You didn't go to his school district, did you?
Oh yeah, of course.
You did?
Oh yeah.
So at some point, was your dad your vice principal?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. I got that. Okay, really? That's so fascinating.
Oh yeah.
And your sister as well.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But, I look at it like this. I mean,
was that like, that's another reason he got bullied.
To be honest with you, right? I mean, the deal was, it was like, hey, don't invite Mike because, he'll tell his dad. Right. I'm like, wait a minute, man. Right. I just want to hang out with you guys. I'm not going to blab.
Oh, geez. But man, Vice Principal Foster and his kid, you at some point, you're like, no, I'm going to just call me Wayne. My name is Michael Wayne.
like Tony Wayne.
Yeah, Tony. Yeah. We're all in the two first names club, you, me, and Tony. Yeah. Yep. Man, that is... Ooh. That's rough to have a vice principal parent. But
the thing is, he was so cool. I mean, my parents still are to this day. My parents' house was always, my parents' house was always kind of, I don't want to say the party house back then, but it's like where all the kids would meet because, you'd have those parents be like, I don't want any people in the house when we're gone, or, I have to ask my parents if we go inside. Right. At my house, doors were open. People came in, spending the night, all my friends hanging out.
So you were the active household.
You were the active household. So
that's great. And I mean, mom's a nurse and dad's vice principal. I could assume that your mom probably didn't keep normal hours, right?
No.
So did dad bear a lot of that bulk at night? Was vice principal also the dad of all of the big group of kids?
So I'll tell he was. But I'll tell you what though, growing up, so I literally lived right across the street from my elementary school. Okay. I'm talking like right on the other side of that wall right there, super close. Right. And I was always the last kid to school because I'd have to watch. I'm so dating myself now, but I was watching Batman.
Okay,
and it was always, you remember Batman and Robin?
Are you talking about the?
I'm talking about the campy '60s.
Adam West,
Adam West, okay. And it would literally school would start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and like at 8:59, I'm sitting there waiting, and it's always a cliffhanger, and then I just sprint across the street.
That's incredible.
But the cool thing was my mom worked. She would go in at like 4:30. So for lunchtime, when all the G-pop, the general population students were going to the cafeteria to eat just garbage. You remember back in the day, it was like pizza and just the terrible cafeteria food. I literally just walked across the street, came home, and in the first part of lunch, it would be
at elementary school.
Elementary school.
Let you leave the campus of the school.
Oh, this is back when life was kind of normal. So I would literally walk across the street.
Like they didn't even. I feel like I wouldn't even be able to exit the doors of that school.
Oh, nowadays
I would have been. But not even nowadays. Even when I was a kid, was only the early '80s. Wasn't that much later than when you were a kid. But
yeah, you're right.
Because I wouldn't have been able to leave as an elementary school. They would have been like, where the hell's that kid going? Like somebody get that kid back.
I think I probably was. My sister and I were probably the only ones that I just would walk across the street. My mom would have an amazing lunch for us.
You got special treatment because of dad working in the maybe because you were a teacher kid.
That's a good question.
You probably because it was probably like, oh well, with his teacher or his dad is a teacher here, so his dads are well aware of what's happening. Versus like, we can't lose a kid again. Hey. We've done this 5 times already. We can't lose another child. Yeah.
If that's the case, though, I'm not apologizing for it. You know why? Because he knew my grades before I did.
That's true.
So like, if the kids say you got a bad grade, and you could kind of hide it from the folks. He'd come home and be like, the first time I ever heard my dad drop an F-bomb, and I went on, and I mean, seriously, my parents didn't cuss, didn't see him drink. Now, once my sister and I graduated from college and got jobs,
the truth came out.
Yeah, the truth came out. But he came up to me, and it was the 8th grade, Mrs. Nayland's English class. And irony is, I went on to become an English teacher, got my first. Back then, we called them E's. They weren't F's. I got an E.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And holy shit.
The participation trophy of grades.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. And he said, Michael, I am so effing disappointed in you. And I literally, that was the first time I remember hearing my dad say that word. I just started bawling. I was like, I'm dead.
Oh, my God.
I'm dead.
Wow.
But,
and it seems like you had a pretty tight family unit in that sense where, a lot of respect for the head of households and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So you're a nerdy kid, with the exception of maybe waiting last minute to go to school. It doesn't seem like you were a bad kid at all.
Oh no, I didn't. I mean,
you were super good.
Oh, as a matter of fact, okay, everyone's got their first time getting busted drinking.
I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I've never drank.
Oh, that's right. You don't drink. That's right. I totally forgot you don't drink.
I broke your mold.
That's right. It's when you and Tony come over, it's Tony having scotch with me, not you. But no, I remember I got busted because there was a billiards place where I'm from in Monroe called Cones and Q. And I went there, and it was a typical Michigan winter, the ice everywhere. Sure. And I tried to pick up a couple of people and fell on my ass.
Oh, geez.
And the girl that lived a street behind us, her mom would always be like, Kelly, why can't you be more like Michael Foster? And she's like, well, let me tell you a little something what I saw about Michael Foster.
So you were used as angry against a parent of another person.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that's how I got nailed.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but no, I didn't. I think that was, I didn't drink really in high school. I didn't do anything too nutty. I mean, the dumbest thing I ever did, I guess I could admit it now.
Sure.
The high school had this mailbox outside, and everybody would try to steal so basically when they built our high school, it had all the construction materials there. So they put this big barbed wire fence around it, and it was a giant high school.
Okay.
So when other schools would come there, they'd be like, dude, do you guys, is this a prison?
Yeah, right. Seriously.
So it was
the insane asylum of high school.
It looked, if you saw a picture of it, you'd be like, wow, this is a pretty creepy looking place.
Right.
So anyway, they had the barbed wire around there, and the whole deal was get over there and steal the guard shack gates and all that.
Wow.
Well, my grandfather happened to give his grandson, me, some of his old fireworks once, and I got his M200s and M80s back when they were real, like a quarter stick of dynamite. So I thought it'd be a good time to take my buddies out there one night, and we threw an M200 in the high school mailbox. And I think to this day, there's remnants of the mushroom cloud that went off. And that was the most destructive, crazy thing I did. But
wow.
Yeah, other than that.
It was like you got into very vanilla shenanigans.
I was vanilla shenanigans all the way.
Yeah, which is good. Yeah. Where did the interest in all the pop culture stuff? Obviously, you said you liked Batman, but I also know for a fact that you love Sly. You know what I mean? Like, where did the interest in all that stuff? Is that from Dad as well, or was he more
Dad all the way?
Guy? Oh, really?
Oh, he was we got the sports stuff from him, but he being an English teacher, the first memory I have of being alive, and I told Cheryl on the cast before.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were a recent guest on Sister Show Movies Made Me, a fellow Dragonlink radio podcast. Right?
Yep. And I told Cheryl, it was like, the truth be told is my first memory of being alive was going out to the high school with my mom. I was probably in first grade. Maybe kindergarten, sure. And my dad was showing on Reel to Reel the original Night of the Living Dead, George Romero,
and that was your first introduction to like the pop culture, to zombies, to all that shit.
Zombies was
first grade. You must have been terrified.
I was,
or was it like 50-50?
It was 50-50 because I was terrified, but at the same time, it gave me a mission. Like, okay, if shit goes sideways, right. We're gonna make sure we need nails and boards, right. And we're gonna have to.
Yeah, you are a doomsday prepper if I've ever known one.
This is true.
And, I
guarantee it's where it came from.
We could do an entire podcast just on us arguing about this, because I think it's so ridiculous. You have the prison from The Walking Dead as your home.
Yeah.
And it is, that's a whole other conversation. Let's put a pin in that for the next time you come on the show.
I would love to get into that one with you.
Because I am totally like I live such the opposite lifestyle. I am the fuck it, lock the door. Don't lock the door. Who gives a fuck? Like, I'm that guy. Meanwhile, you're like, this is what shit's going to go down. Yeah. Anyways.
Well, probably doesn't help that my wife escaped a communist country.
True.
And she's like, she's kind of got the whole cold dead hands thing going on.
Way to make my dumb bit into something serious and sad. Thanks for that.
She's happy now. She's as red, white, and blue as they come. So it's.
But yes, you do probably have more reasons than my lack of reasons.
She was just the gasoline on what I already was.
Sure.
That's all.
So all right. So Dad was into pop culture. Mm-hmm. Mom took you, so Mom must have also been kind of a fan as well.
Oh yeah.
And at what point did you, other than making shit with your friends from radio and whatnot and fucking around with the video camera, at what point were you like, oh, acting seems like an interesting thing, or was that not even until late in life?
If everyone, hindsight 2020, if I could go back in high school, I would have still played basketball because I loved it.
Sure.
But baseball was, even though I was better at baseball, right. I played in college, I would have probably put a pause on that and taken a lot more theater classes, a lot more drama classes.
You would have done the route that I route. At one point, I had to make a decision because I also excelled in baseball. I was a catcher. And, in the small little league divisions when you were little kids in school, I was always he's going to be the catcher for this one guy who's the pitch. We had two really excellent pitchers. Actually, one of them went on to minor leagues. And I think he got right out of high school, he got brought someplace, didn't even have to go to college kind of thing. I was always the catcher. I was like, oh, Jake's going to be and then when I got to high school, after 1 year, it was sort of well, you can do this or you can be in the plays. And I was sort of well, because, other sports or other activities, if I wanted to do, they didn't coincide with certain plays of the year, and I think it wasn't until my sophomore year where it was all right, well, this specific play, the under, whatever you call it, the undergrade play that year, or the one for the sophomores and freshmen, takes place the exact same time baseball does. And it was got to make a choice. And I was like, all right, well, it's been fun baseball, but I'm going to go do this other thing that I really love. Even though at that point, I was probably a better catcher than I was an actor. But it's
I do
that kind of thing. And so, you probably would have made the decision that I made.
But
here's the thing, honestly, do you? Because ultimately here we are, I would argue you're further along in your career than I am in mine. And we're still in the exact same spot. You know what I mean? We're in the exact same. So, I always think about that because I myself am that person where I'm always God, if I could go back, I'd move right to LA when I was 22 or 21. I always say that. But the truth is if I did that, I would have been just as dumb as I was wherever I was when I was 22. Oh. And
I would be dead if I was out here at 22.
But you know what I mean? So the question is who knows? Maybe if you did go back and you chose that instead, you would end up in the exact same path, or you would have ended up at this point being like, shit, I should have been a teacher.
Right.
So
it's so crazy. I got like everything like bass backwards. You know, it was like I was Mr. Foster and a respectable adult in my 20s.
Right.
And I grew up to California, grew my hair out, became a hippie. You know,
you're a fucking kid all of a sudden.
But no, I would say that, you know, like I did take theater in college. I just wish I would have done more of that in college.
And you went to college with the desire of being a teacher.
Oh yeah,
you were following dad's footsteps.
Like 100%. You know, a lot of people say the whole thing like, oh, man, when I grow up, I'm not going to be like my old man. I grew up saying I want to be exactly like my dad. I went to the same college he did. We played the same sports. I did the same major. When I graduated and came back to the same hometown, had the same job, coached the same sports, and then one day, and it wasn't that I was miserable. I loved every day.
Was this something that your dad ever put on you?
Oh, never.
This was all you were doing?
My dad was my parents said, do whatever you want, but whatever you start, you will finish. Wow. That was the only law. So it's like, if I wanted to take up ballet, that's great, but you're not going to stop until the ballet season is over.
Right.
But no, that was I was doing everything that I wanted to do, and then that's when you know, how I got into theater, how I'm here sitting with you today is something that I probably shouldn't talk about in front of a casting director ever. But
all right, well, whatever.
That's when I got cast to be in The Bachelorette.
Right. Yeah. Oh my God, how did I forget about this?
I'm glad you did.
Oh my God. So when I first met Mike, it wasn't until I think we were actually cast, or we were actually shooting Skull Rosary, that you mentioned something or something came up.
No, you made my first reel, and you're like,
oh,
what?
That's what
you're
it was.
Like, you're like, what material do you have? And I'm like, this.
That's what it was. Is you were like, hey, so could you mind help me put this reel? And you sent me a bunch of shit, and I was like, what is this? And so Mike Foster was on The Bachelorette. So if you're a Bachelorette fan listening right now, oh boy, what season could we catch Mike Foster on?
It would be season 3, the one with one of the first recycled bachelorettes, Jen Sheft. For those that know it, she was the fiance to the guy up in California, that Andrew Firestone had all the breweries and all that. All right. And then it didn't work out, but yeah, there's some good YouTube moments on that.
You were the typical big giant sexy meathead guy, and I remember there was a clip where you did like a rhyme about your muscles, and you were like,
"Don't give me tequila,
the lat," and you know, I gotta trap ya with my buy something. I don't remember what it was, but I remember just seeing it and being like, "This is
don't try to get by me, or I'll trap you. I've dealt with your kind before.
God damn
Am I going to get a date this weekend?
I hate it.
Absolutely.
Oh my God, I hate it.
Well, actually, what I was doing, but like I said, they kept throwing shots down our throats, and I started getting a little goofy. Yeah. And my thing is, I was imitating a fraternity brother of mine in college.
Hilarious.
Like, really would walk up.
So you were doing a shtick, and they were like,
this is brilliant. And I'm like, no, I know a guy. This guy, my buddy of mine, Dan Rimmel, he'd throw a big dip in and walk up to chicks and be like, hey.
And do the whole shtick. Oh,
absolutely,
hilarious.
Baby. And I'm like, oh my God, this guy's, what's he doing?
How did you ever get cast in this? You must have answered a casting call of some sort.
So I'm just being a mild-mannered teacher from Michigan, doing my thing. And a friend of mine from college, actually was my college roommate, calls me up and he's like, hey, they're casting this show down here in Cleveland. Do you want to come down and audition for it? And I'm like, what is it? And he goes, The Bachelorette. And I'm like, no, I don't want. Why would I do that? Right. And I knew my parents watched it, so I came up to them and I was like, hey, I went over to their house one day and I was like, hey, Mom, Dad, what do you think about this Bachelorette thing? And they're like, well, yeah, they just announced that Jen Sheft, your dad's fraternity brother, his daughter is going to be the new Bachelorette. I'm like, wait a minute, there's kind of a connection.
Wait, that's weird.
I was like, really? I said, well, is he a nice guy? My dad's like, he was one of my best friends. And I'm like, so you must have a nice daughter. Now remember, I'm teaching in cow country, Michigan, where everyone's either married or it's like that, that 68-year-old teacher, Mrs. Kornbluth,
Yes.
So I'm like, I'm a single dude. I'm in how do I say this? Here in Los Angeles, how we wake up every day and you could fall in love a million times over because everyone here is beautiful.
Right. I know exactly what you're getting at.
Yeah, we'll just say that.
Slim pickings.
Slim pickings. And
because everybody is either not your type or your cousin. That's pretty much what it boils down to in a town like that.
Totally.
Right.
You're absolutely right. So I was like, I that weekend I actually had to go because I'm a flaming capitalist. As teaching would happen, after teaching, I would always try to make extra money on the side, either coaching, which didn't pay very well, or that's where I started doing the sports nutrition demos, how I met you.
Right.
And I actually, believe it or not, that weekend I had to go to Cleveland and work for Sylvester Stallone, the picture that you actually just see how it's all tying together.
You met Sly at one of these events, and you were highly influenced by Drago.
Drago was the reason I started working out
in your life.
Yeah, I want to look like Ivan Drago, and I even told him that.
And then he said to you, "You're bigger than Drago."
He was like, "Yeah, you're bigger than Drago," and I was like,
"That's incredible.
Thank you."
That's that like you could die right then and be like, "There, I nailed it. Got it."
I mean, think about that happened, and then I drove back from Columbus, Ohio, back to. I'm getting off track a little bit. This was a different trade show, but then I drove back from Columbus, Ohio, to Monroe, Michigan, all 3 hours, going back to be a teacher, saying that Sly Stallone just said that I'm bigger than Drago. I'm like, and then tomorrow morning I get up and say, "Okay, kids, open up your books to page 48. We're doing Shakespeare."
Sure. But I have a question for you about. First off, you taught high school.
Yeah, I taught high school English.
Like, were the seeds of your desire to perform something that you were able to stretch as a high school teacher?
Oh man, I improv like crazy. Are you kidding? That's where I got all my improv from.
Right.
And you know, I mean, every time we would do a play, I would try to have the students read as much as possible.
Because you taught English, so you did a lot of ancient, or not ancient. You did a lot of non-contemporary.
Julius Caesar. We did a lot of Shakespeare. John Steinbeck. All that. Right. But anyway, I would always, every chance that we would have a story to read, I would always really grab that by the horns and be like, This I just love doing it.
Right.
But anyway, to get back to the Bachelorette, so they had this interview for me. It wasn't a casting call.
Okay.
And you know the cattle calls they do. You know, you see like 500 douchebags standing out there being like, "Hey, I'm the next Bachelorette." You know?
God.
So I went down there and met a guy in a hotel room. It was up in one of the high rise. He had a big suite up there. It was a casting director by the name of Johnny Rains. And I go in there and he's asking me questions, and I sit down. It was an interview kind of like this. They had the camera set up, the whole shebang. He's asking me what I like to do, this, that, and the other thing. And, I left, finished doing my trade show, went home, and about a week later, I get a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, you made the top 50. We need to fly you out to Los Angeles."
Wow.
Now, again, I knew Ohio and Michigan, and all of a sudden I'm getting flown to LA, and I was like, whoa.
Right.
So I came out here and did, do what I do. And, then they called me back and said, "You're one of the top 25s. You're going to New York to film The Bachelorette." They're like, "Can you get the time off?" And I'm like, "Oh boy." So I talked to my principal about it, who was super cool. And he's like, "You have to go to the board. You have to go to the Board of Education and make your case." So the thing of it is The Bachelorette tells you can't talk about this. So it was NDA. It was like, and if you say anything, it's $5 million lawsuit.
Right, some crazy shit.
So I'm like, okay. So I go to the Board of Education, and I was like, I went up to him before it started. I said, "Can I just be last?" And they're like, "Okay," because I figured by then everybody would filter out.
Right.
And after everybody kind of filtered out, I'm like, this is going to be a very strange request. But I sort of got cast on this reality television show, and I was wondering if I could take unpaid is fine, an unpaid leave of absence. I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." I was like, "Oh,
as simple as that." You're like, "Shit, I should have went first. I could have been out of here at 20 minutes."
Right.
Yeah.
I could be sitting at the $5.99 China buffet right now, which is where I wanted to be. But so I went and did that show, and the thing about the show is that sort of reminded me what it was like to be in front of the camera.
Sure.
And then I got back to my teeny tiny little hometown, and all of a sudden I'm doing local Detroit and Toledo commercials.
Because you're this you're a
back there,
celebrity now.
Yeah, if you tell people in LA I was on The Bachelorette, they'd be like,
"That's it."
And
yeah, or like me, and I would just laugh.
Exactly, right. Like, you're that guy.
I have to say, you say like, "Oh, showing up and like being in a line of dudes." Like, I don't know if a hell exists. Some people think if it does, it's different for everybody. If that's the case, my hell is being in a line of dudes auditioning for The Bachelorette for all of eternity.
Jake, I think mine would have been too. So I'm glad I got an appointment. But yeah, I did that, and I was like, "Oh, this is so much fun. This is so much fun." You probably remember cutting a couple of those commercials when you did my reel.
Oh, I definitely. You were like a Roto-Rooter dude.
I was the Roto-Rooter, man. You know they're still running that shit?
Are they really?
I swear. This is why you join your union.
It's not even in HD. Like, how do they? It doesn't even fit modern television.
I know. And the thing of it is could you imagine if I was getting residuals off that still? But nothing.
Jeez.
But anyway, so that's when I got the thing, and it was like, I love this so much. Right. And my motto in life is kind of like, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly.
Sure.
And if I'm going to be an actor, I need to be in LA. If I want to sit around and be a teacher and make cars or whatever, Detroit's a great place to be.
Right.
But if you're going to be an actor, you need to be in either LA or New York. And no offense to anyone from New York in this room.
No,
I like weather.
Well, not for nothing, but also I think that it's a different go in New York. Like, I'm from New York. I miss New York. I would fucking love to be back in New York, but it's just not a smart decision. Like, the opportunities I think are way more abundant out here. Yeah. And I think that it's a specific style. Like the things that I want to do are happening here. If honestly, anybody who's like, I want to be a theater actor, get the fuck out of LA. Like go to New York. You know what I mean? So it's different flavors. Like there's different flavors. If you're really big into shooting music videos, what are you gonna get like 2 in New York? Whereas like it's all out here. So everybody's got, every city rather has like kind of a different benefit and con. But yeah, so you moved to LA. That obviously had to be some sort of a culture shock to you.
Oh my God.
But you're also like, if you're this ham, see, this is what I can't figure out about you, is because everybody's a little broken, and I can't quite figure out why you're broken.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Because therapist, it's time.
No, it's just that thing where it's like you, and maybe this is what sets you apart. Maybe it's the fact that there is a sincerity in you that other people lack, which is why I've never met anybody who said an unkind word about a Mike Foster. Like, I think there's definitely a type of person who says like, hey, do you want to know what I deserve? A bunch of people looking at me and paying me to talk at them on camera. Like, it takes a type of person, but you don't seem to have any of that. You don't have unlike me. I don't think you don't have a chip on your shoulder. You don't necessarily have that, and maybe it has to do with the fact that you were, as in your own words, a fat kid. And
I guarantee it. And I mean, I go into these trade shows.
You swanned late in life, as my girlfriend put it.
And I'm glad that I swanned at the time I did, because going to these trade shows, and now I'm doing a lot of these Comic-Con events.
Right. Yeah.
I go there and I see these guys like last year. I'm not going to throw anybody into the bus.
Sure.
But I'm seeing people that were extras on stuff.
Oh, I know.
When people walk up saying $25 for a selfie with me. Yeah. And I'm thinking like, I literally go and, I mean, it's like, I'll drop like $100, go to Office Depot and get a bunch of, those little, what are those, 9 by 10?
Oh, yeah.
Little night, like I'll get some stuff made of, whatever character I might have played that the kids might be into.
Right.
And I just autograph them and give them to people for free.
You're saying that because you have been on a couple like Disney kid shows and like Disney XD. You were on the Thundermans. You played like a Sly Stallone alike. You played,
that was Kicking It. I was Sylvester Stallion.
Sylvester Stallion. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Nickelodeon did 2 Nickelodeon shows.
Oh, great. So you have a lot of little kids who know who you are.
Well, the best part is a lot of those little kids, their parents were kids that I had in class. So now they're like, hey, that was Mr. Foster. That was our high school teacher. And their kids are like, you don't know him.
That's so funny.
And then I meet him, and all my characters like Strongdoor from the Thunderman. Strongdoor, we'll crush you.
Yeah, they're all these like very boisterous character-y.
Right. They're like, he doesn't talk like that. You talk normal. Wait, you're not supposed So
I love that. So not only are you surprising them, but you're destroying the myth for them. You're just
oh man, just ruining it. But that being said, like, when I go to these trade shows, it repulses me to think that people that are going to be cool enough to actually watch the stuff that I'm doing,
right, or
take time out of their day to check me out on whatever show it is, then I'm going to turn around and be like, thanks, give me $10, give me $25 for a picture. It's like, no, hey.
It's also like there's definitely a type. And listen, I'm not going to necessarily talk down to people who are doing that. Like, you make your living however you want to make your living, but simultaneously, like, there's a sadness that comes with some shit. There's the dude who, he's the nicest guy, but he's the dude who played like fucking one of the Ninja Turtles in the 90s Ninja Turtle movie. And the dude charges for photos, but he's wearing the costume.
Oh man, don't be that guy.
Have you seen? He's on like, so he'll literally like he'll take a photo with you, and he wears the costume to the cons, and then he puts it. And again, he's the nicest guy, and like this is not. I'm not ditching bad mouthing his character, but it's that thing of like, if I care enough to take a picture with you, it's because of you as a human being. Like, you did a thing that I think is incredible. You did something that was highly influential on me. Like, that movie is really important to me. That movie was very huge for me, and I like you as a person. Like, I'd rather just you like in your street clothes smiling with me and like getting to talk to you. Like, the fact that you put on the costume, that dude is like the representation of, I think, a massive problem with the like pop culture aftermarket, let's call it. You know what I mean? Where it's just because here's the thing is like he's successful that way. And so therefore it feeds this thing that's it's a little perverse in a way where it's like anybody who says like, yeah, put the mask on, like anyways, I digress, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh, I totally get what you're saying. And and going to the cons before, like I used to go to the Arnold Classic every year, which is the big bodybuilding show. Yeah. And these are all guys that I'd see in the magazines that inspired me to, where I got a lot of knowledge from, like what workouts to do. And I'd see them and I would walk up so nervous, like, can I have a picture with you? And now I go to these cons, like for example, I go back to the Monroe Pop Fest every year. It's like, I want to do something for my hometown.
Right.
And they've got a little pop culture con going on that is every year grown and grown and grown to now where it's very,
awesome.
Recognizable in the Midwest. And I go back there. That's kind of like my way of giving back. And I see these little kids that are looking at me the same way. I remember, I look at them and I know it. That's how I used to look at people that I thought were famous.
Right.
And be like so nervous and shy. And I'm like, oh, come here, and it's just, so I mean, I know what it would be like as a little kid to look at one of your idols and just be like, wow, that just ruined everything. So I don't want to be somebody that ruins.
That's honestly, that's beautiful, because I don't know if I've ever told this story before, but I met Roy Scheider when I was young. At my mother was involved. I can't remember the circumstance, but there was some sort of like celebrity charity softball game for a local radio station, and I think my mom had a connection to them because she used to teach like country western line dancing. So I think she had like a connection to like a VJ, or I don't remember the details, but there was a couple people there that were like, celebrities, like Danny Aiello was there. And there's a couple of people that are like big celebs. But for me, it was all about, I was just like Jaws. Like, I was just like, that's all I care about. I was like, that's Brody. Like, I want to meet Agent Brody. This is the coolest thing ever. And I have a photo. I'll try to find it and send it to you in like a text later, just when I remember. But there's a photo of me looking like kind of off awkwardly into the distance as Roy Scheider is like signing a softball, but not looking at anybody. And it was the most like, and he was just like going through the motions, and he didn't want to be there. He was done with his day. He was just sort of like totally over it. And literally, if it was like, I didn't care about anybody else, and it was just this one dude. And I remember just feeling so awkward because he wouldn't look up. And I was like, I really love Jaws, really great, blah, 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 blah. And like, just like, like face down, just like he wasn't even making sentences. He was just making sounds. That guy. And I remember just being like, oh God. The fucking worst. So please, even if you're not necessarily somebody's Roy Scheider, you might be there, literally anybody and everybody. So that's very nice of you to be that kind. And again, it's a testament to why I think, like, I don't think you have that chip on your shoulder. Do you think that hurts you in any way? Because I have noticed that sometimes I might be too nice for certain elements of this industry. Do you find yourself falling into that category?
A little bit. I mean, I'm sure I could make more money doing that, but that's honestly, getting into acting, the thing was, it was never about like, oh, I'm going to try to make tons of money. When the money comes, it's there. But taking money from my fans for, pictures or a little bit of time, that's no bueno. Now, I will say that the thing that I am too nice about is my time.
Right.
Because, and I mean, there are a lot of, I call them EVs, energy vampires.
Oh, God.
You know what I'm talking about.
I love that. That's a beautiful phrase.
That's the energy vampires. They live. And it's, and I don't want to be mean to anyone. I really don't.
Sure.
But there are sometimes people just like, I got to go. And my wife is, because she's a doctor, she's very, very cut and dry with everything.
Yeah,
so she's like, okay, we're done. Bye. And we're away, I'm like, and then, okay, and as I'm looking at my watch.
That's sort of like your small town, like
absolutely
Midwestern roots, kind of. Yeah.
Well, see, because being from New York, you guys are always on the go.
Yeah, I have no problem saying goodbye to people.
Yeah, right.
But simultaneously, I myself am also sort of a yapper. I don't think I'm an energy vampire, but I'm talking about just
You're not an energy vampire.
I'm talking about just being generally like kind with people. Like, I can bullshit and schmooze enough, but I also do have like a fucking limit. I have a wall, and a lot of that also comes from being like a non-drinker. Like, friends who like know whenever I'm at a bar someplace, like, oh, Jake just hit his drunk tolerance. Yeah. Like, Jake just hit the tolerance where, like, from this point on, I can no longer talk to anybody who's drunk anymore. Like, the cup is filled and it runneth over.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you're very gracious with your time, and you think that sometimes that could be kind of problematic with you, especially when it comes to just like taking work too. Did you find yourself like having a hard time saying no to things?
Yeah. Now I'm to the point where I'm lucky enough to have an amazing agent out here, and I've got an amazing manager. And both of them now
we'll talk after.
It's kind of, what it is with both those guys. I feel a lot like that last scene of Jerry Maguire. Where it's just kind of like those are the guys that they've gone to bat for me. I mean, and out here in this town there are so many agents and managers that literally just click. These are guys that not only click, they submit, then they pitch, and then they follow up, and then they thank. And it's just like, I mean, I've told my agent before, I could have William Morris or, CMA call tomorrow.
Right.
And the first thing I'd say is be like, well, can these two guys come along and be on the team with me?
Right.
Because I don't want to leave them. I mean, that's going to be, hopefully, if things keep progressing the way they have, which has been good, I've been working.
Right.
That will be the one issue that I know that it's going to make me nervous if a bigger agency comes along.
Right.
And I don't want to leave my guys at all.
Right, sure.
But you and I know how the industry
and
works.
they also might tell you to. Like if they're good enough, they might be like, well,
right.
this is smart for you.
But I look at it as like, I wouldn't be here in the first place if it wasn't for these guys. So
and so you and I are very similar in that sense. Like there's a reason. It's not just that to bring it all back. I know we're kind of short on time now at this point, but like, it wasn't just I saw you in that, that day that we met and I was just like, oh, I like this guy. He's nice. I'm going to put him in one thing ever. Like you showed up to Skull Rosary, the first project I did, and you nailed it. You were a total team player. That was not an easy shoot, that short film we made. We hiked 45 minutes in and 45 minutes out, sometimes only for a 2-hour day.
Yeah.
I mean, like sometimes we were hiking just as much as we were shooting in the middle of like heat and it was grueling. You did that. You did it with a smile. You did it with an excitement, an enthusiasm. And I have, I've said before many times, you can hire the best actor for the job, or you can hire the actor who will do the best job. And now that's not to say that you weren't the best actor for the job. I wrote the parts for you. but what I'm saying is like, do you get what I'm saying about that? Like sometimes, having somebody like you who shows up and makes it better. Not just artistically, which you always do every time you make it better, but also you make the set better. You make the attitude better. You make it easier for someone like me who is just fucking scratching and clawing. And man, God, I'm gonna get emotional just talking about this because like it's really tough. And I'm at a point now where celebrating my decade in LA, it becomes really, really easy to think about all of the things that aren't happening or that haven't happened. And it's so incredibly hard to just try to do something completely on your own. And to know that somebody like Mike Foster is going to show up and he's going to knock it out of the fucking park, both figuratively and literally, because I also did put you in my feeture film Pinch.
Yes. Which I get to see for the first time tonight, by the way. It'll be screened at my house.
And so it's a huge testament to that. And that's sort of what kind of the pin I want to put on this is like, you are that guy. And so much so where you and I are similar. We're like, I can't imagine making anything without you in it. Like, I just can't imagine it, whether it's obviously, sometimes our types are problematic where it's like, all right, well, I can't put you as certain types because of your look and build, but like, I'm going to find a role for you're on that list of 5 people who are going to be in everything I ever make. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's why every time you call me, I'm like, I get to work with you again. You know how much fun I have working with you.
Yeah, well, that means Tony, a lot. Because man, I tell you, it's really hard. And I have really struggled finding a family over the years. In LA, and to this time, I still don't feel like I have it. I still feel like the majority of my family is sort of one-sided, where it's like I'm including people, and it's the ball's not getting handed back that way. But man, people like you, and you talk about how like you're with these management, these agents, and it's like they're the guys that you're where you are because of them. I am where I am, wherever that might be. I might at times think it's too low on the ladder or that I'm not doing anything or relevance, but regardless, wherever I am, whatever issues I grasp, understanding that location is like, I'm there because of you and because of Tony Wayne and because of Kenny Cooper and, and because of these people who are there with me, which is why like I couldn't imagine moving on to a success and not bringing them with me. And I think that you and I share that. And that is something that a lot of people don't have. And I know that this seems like I try to avoid too much industry talk on this podcast. And this seems to be diving that way. But this is relevant in any industry. This is relevant in life in general. Like, I talk a lot about family on this podcast. And it's like, out here in LA, I have seen you, and I haven't seen you in a while. I've still seen you more than, my closest cousin who's like my brother in the past 10 years.
Well, I've seen, the thing, for as big of a city it is, it's pretty lonely sometimes, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's a testament to your character, man. And you are just as much of a family-oriented person as I am. That's why I'll always work with you. And, you're one of the best. I have to say, you're one of the best. And, there's so much more that we have to dive into. We didn't even talk about, about your success on stuff like, Walking Dead Red Machete, the web series, the official Walking Dead web series. Talk about coming full circle and being inspired by
what you just talked about is actually what you just were talking about as far as just trying to be someone that's good on set and doing all that. That's where I got that job from. It was because of what I did on the Thundermans on Nickelodeon show. The Josh Tessier, the stunt director, came up and he was like, hey, Miss Thunderman's going to kick you. Can you take a fall for me? I'm I'd love to. Right. And I'm like, let's do it. This sounds fun. Yeah. And he was like, wow, thanks, man. He goes, do you realize a lot of actors be like, well, give me a stunt bump, give me this. And I'm like, well, I just want to work.
Right.
And he was like, okay. So when he became the stunt coordinator for the Walking Dead Red Machete episodes, the director, Avi Ubian, was like, hey, I need a big guy that can act and can maybe take a fall. And he's like, I know a guy.
Perfect.
And you talk about full circle. The first thing I remember being alive was Night of the Living Dead. And, can you imagine when I got to call my dad? This was one of my favorite phone calls ever. And be like, you're never going to believe this. I'm going to be in the Walking Dead universe. And he just was like, because I don't think either one of us have missed an episode, you know?
Right. That's amazing. I absolutely love that. So we didn't even get to talk about that. We didn't get to talk about your countless super fun appearances. Every time they need a big hilarious dude, I've seen you pop up on Blackish. I've seen you pop up.
That was fun.
On you were on Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'll just go up and there's a Mike Foster. He's just all over the place. If the people want to find you, where can they find you on social media to maybe see some of this stuff?
Well, Instagram and all that, it's Michael Wayne Foster. You can go there.
Michael Wayne Foster.
Yep. And my website is michaelwaynefoster.com, and that's got all my social media links on it.
Awesome.
And other than that, I do have, if anybody out there wants to know what's going on in the romance thing, I've got my little Facebook page called Reaction to Romance.
Man.
Can I tell you about this one real quick?
Yeah, please do.
So here was the thing. You talked about the stereotype of what I look like and you'd expect me to be a certain way. My thing was this. I hate that too. And I hate the fact people are like, oh, you're a model and you've got long hair, Fabio. Like, wow, do you have anything between your ears? And I'm like, well, let me tell you something. I'm the only romance model in the world that actually has his own review of the books that he's on, because I used to be a high school English teacher. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
We didn't even talk about that. Mike here graces the cover of what, like 800?
Actually,
are you serious?
I really am over 800 now.
Oh my God, I threw that out as a joke. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So you're over 800 romance novel covers.
Really am.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So we'd have to talk about that at a different time. So this is definitely going to be a part one. You have to come back and do this again with me one day soon.
Well, as a matter of fact, it's cool to know that I live less than 2 miles away.
Yeah, you're right up here up the road.
I mean, we could meet down in Kenneth Village.
Yeah. Oh, Alexandra and I, we walk there every now and then, and we wish that there were like 2 more things there. Like it's a nice little village, but we were like, we need like 2 more options to eat there to like make it a regular place.
Well, let me throw this out at you. You've got to stop at that little Armenian bakery that's right there.
Oh, we've been.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah. That place is great.
So
that
good.
Place is really good.
Yeah. Former fat kid coming out now. Now we're talking food.
Right. Well, anyways, so please keep up with Mike. Michael Wayne. What did you say?
Michael Wayne Foster.
.net?
.com.
Yeah. But you beat me to it. So please do that. We will definitely do this one more time, Mike. Before we get out of here, the typical business, of course. Follow at Elaborate Pod on all social media. If you are enjoying this show and you enjoy these conversations and you think to yourself, hey, I really love listening to Jake talk to these people and I really enjoy learning more about them and about what makes them tick and why they are the way they are, do us a huge favor and leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. There are so many shows that are not dissimilar to ours. I am not unaware that I am not reinventing the wheel here. But, explaining to the people that might be interested in listening why this is slightly different is always going to be a good thing for us. So please leave us a rating or review. Also, if you're enjoying the show and you want to support it, check out the shop. Go to dragonwagonshop.com. Pick up fantastic Elaborate merchandise as well as Dragon Wagon themed merchandise. The ratings and reviews help us continue emotionally, and your purchases from the shop help us continue financially. So please make sure you're checking out dragonwagonshop.com. Follow me personally on Twitter at LiquidJake, on Instagram at Jake Lloyd. And as always, I will end it as I do with my ultimate message. Please be an artist, not an influencer. Create art, not content. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mike. I absolutely love you.
Oh, right back at you, brother. It's been a pleasure.
Hey, Dragon Wagoneers. I am sitting down right now with one Steven Sable. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Jake.
You are a host of a brand new podcast on this very podcast network called Don't Quill the Messenger.
I am indeed. That's correct.
What is Don't Quill the Messenger about?
Well, Don't Quill the Messenger is a podcast series about the Shakespeare authorship question. What is the Shakespeare authorship
That's
question?
my line.
Oh, let me tell you what the Shakespeare authorship question is. The Shakespeare authorship question surrounds the mystery of who was the real writer behind the pen name William Shakespeare. A lot of people don't realize that the pen name William Shakespeare was a pen name, but there are people like me who believe it was. And we look into the different controversies and theories that surround that issue and try to get to the truth by asking questions.
That is absolutely fascinating. How do people find it?
They find it on Dragon Wagon Radio, of course, or they can go to don'tquillthemessengerpodcast.com or wherever podcasts are found.
It's Dragon Wagon.